All right. Bear with me again, I'm very injured. I was a dum-dum over Thanksgiving, and I had an allergic reaction. She is the Senior Director of Esports for GAAM and internationally published model, photographer, and visual artist. Please give it up for Hoang. Yeah, you can come up, it's fine. Oh man, my buddy, my friend. You've seen him before. He is a co-producer of two premier Comic-Con events, Ancient City Con and Jekyll Comic-Con. Max Michaels has been a part of the creative force strengthening our culture, our life, our city. Please give it up, Mr. Max Michaels. Come on up. She has been, she's very embarrassed. She has been Jill Valentine, Nathan Drake, Cortana. These are but of the few characters Anne-Marie has cosplayed over the past 2 decades. Would you please give it up for Anne-Marie? Come on up. What can I say that this picture doesn't already say? He is the founder of GAAM. That's right. Games, arts, and music to the uninitiated. He was voted Jacksonville's best cosplay event of 2019. It is not a convention. Please give it up. You know the hype. Ryan Paul Thompson. You all right, man?
No, I'm getting too long. I can't walk.
Woo. All right. He is a creator of 3 sci-fi series. He is a comic book writer. He's native to Jacksonville. You know his comic books, Eclipse, Port of Earth, Lost City of Explorers. Please give a warm round of applause all the way from Krypton, Los Angeles, Zack Kaplan. Oh boy, this guy.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Zach.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Doing great, bud.
Audio, no visual.
Okay,
all right.
We will fix it.
All good.
What can I say about this man here? Badr Milligan, you have managed to hustle your way into the hearts of everyone in this city. You are the host of Jacksonville's #1 pop culture and comic book podcast. You are my friend. You are my brother. Please come to the stage and take this thing from me.
Let's go ahead and give it up for Cesar Cordero, ladies and gentlemen. That monologue was amazing. You should consider doing a podcast or starring in a pirate movie. Ladies and gents, it's an important night for all of us, proud and, it's an important night for all of us, proud and self-proclaimed nerds, geeks, and fanboys and fangirls alike to be represented by this panel tonight, and to team up with TEDxFSCJ to share these stories and perspectives about these passionate fandoms that have brought us all here together tonight. Ladies and gents, give it up for yourselves. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that a lot. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and talk to the panel. Zach, Max, Ryan, Anne-Marie, Lee. As a panel, you guys bring diverse experience to the table from all walks of the geek and nerd fandom umbrella, ranging from operating comic conventions, GAAM events, cosplay, esports, comic books. What is it that drives you to wake up in the morning and do all of this amazing but really hard work? And can you define your roles in a little more detail as well? Zach, I think we'll go ahead and start with you.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right, well, I wake up every day to write and develop comics, and for comics or graphic novels, there I am. And then work on the adaptations of my work into film and TV. And it's a very exciting time for comic book creators, and I say creators instead of writers because original comic book ideas have really caught on. There's a lot of appetite for them, so it's not all just Marvel and DC superheroes. And because of that, if you're a comic book creator, you have a lot of involvement as almost a producer of your own content. So you say, what in detail do? I wake up every day and I'm researching new ideas and pitching to publishers, packaging projects with artists and colorists and letterers, and I'm working with them once in production to put together a great series. I'm reaching out to comic journalists and podcasters like yourself, and then helping retailers to market my work, and finally going to conventions and signings to engage and connect with fans. So it's a wonderful medium, and I love it, and I love telling stories in comics.
It sounds like a dream job. Thank you, Zach.
It is, thank you.
Max, what about you?
Thanks a lot. For me, it's been about growing up in the comic world and being fascinated by cosplay and the kind of entire nerd culture that there is, and going to conventions and experiencing the shows and knowing the excitement that it can bring to fans, having the ability to be able to put something like that together to create something different or unique that will bring that kind of enjoyment to fans as well is what gets me up in the morning to create these kind of events.
I think that should fit you guys. That's fine. I think
Just talk into it.
yeah.
Why? Why did you do it? It's like a
Is it on?
machine gun tripod pointing at me. I don't know if I'm gonna do that.
Is that thing on?
Is it on?
No, these aren't on.
I'll do like, this is an ASMR thing now.
Hey, Zach, Mr. Paul, do we got any extra?
I don't need a mic. I'm
Talk loud.
Yeah. Money. That's no. That ain't coming into that. No, I mean the main reason I think a lot of us do this is, I know part of it was a lot of this community. Good. A lot of this community and the events and everything else around it. Oh, look at that. The community, the events, a lot of the aspects of the culture just weren't around for us growing up. Like these were all things that they existed in pockets. It was like maybe you and 2 or 3 friends from the neighborhood or somebody you met at school, and like you guys would, we can play Street Fighter together, or we're the kids that are gonna play Dungeons and Dragons, or we're the people that are gonna dress up in costumes. Like it was in pockets. And so it kind of just gets to that do or die time. Like, all right, you're gonna talk about it or be about it. And for me, that's a motivator, is making sure that, okay, it exists now. And then from an artistic perspective, it's a form of expression, like being able to make something, whether it's on a piece of paper or making an experience. It's kind of like a method of expression, and kind of like a love letter for all these different games and comic books. And I just got cut. I will not be. Where's the broom thing?
Oh, this one works. Okay, so what motivates me to cosplay? For me, it's always about the experience at the actual conventions, and the most important thing is the people who you're gonna meet and who you might inspire or kind of motivate. I know there's always been times where I've gone to conventions and there's maybe a costume I wanted to make, but I was too nervous to, and then I'd see somebody else in it and see how great they looked, and it kind of motivates me. And as I got older and older into cosplay, and the younger generation would come up and we'd talk, and it's like, oh man, have the tables turned? Am I inspiring the youngins now? So, and it's always just been about that, just kind of helping each other out, making new friends, And then it's a passion project. It's really the best way to show people what you love and how much you love it. Like, some people wear t-shirts, some people get bumper stickers, and some people dress up as the characters. So really that's just kind of, it's a passion, and it's just being able to share it with other people is really what kind of keeps me going in this whole crazy cosplay world. So.
Thank you.
I wake up every morning to document the history of esports, specifically the fighting game community. It's definitely coming to light these days, so what better way to document something that doesn't have a lot of history, because it was thrown under the rug a lot. Uh-oh, I'm not loud.
They don't want you talking.
So.
Do we? I'm sorry.
That was esports money, cut her out. That's why you'll know how to support local events. Came before the mic.
I think they're getting mics in the back. In the meantime, speaking about GAAM, esports, and fighting game tournaments, Ryan, Anne-Marie, and Lee, you all play integral roles in running and contributing to GAAM. And throughout the organization's 7 years, it has managed to merge video games, art, music, and cosplay as both a lifestyle and marketplace. As a matter of fact, I think we have a video that paints that picture perfectly. So we'll play this real quick, and I'll ask you a question. Looks pretty fun. I highly recommend going to a GAAM event if you have not. But the question, what are some favorable factors that have helped GAAM thrive in Jacksonville's video game community? Ryan, do you want to take us?
Sure. Helps GAAM thrive? I think the community is probably one of the biggest things. Like, we've talked about this before, where GAAM is very much like a role-playing game, where literally we'll start off with an idea and just kind of, as we're trying to figure it out, like, oh wait, you do this, come along and you can be a part of it too. And then that new person kind of adds on to the quest, so to speak. And that's kind of been I guess we've been fortunate where the ideas keep evolving. That's why the show keeps changing, and why what we do is different every time around, because each new person kind of brings new and different ideas. So we try to stay open to that. And just like, how are we going to change this year? Okay, let's do that. Are we still doing something good? Sweet, let's make sure we're doing that. If we're doing the same thing year after year, we have the mentality of, oh wait, I gotta remember there are kids in here. I can't talk like I normally do. If we're gonna do it the same way over and over again, it then becomes boring to us, and that doesn't really fulfill us as artists. I think most artists can understand that. And so that kind of pushes us to keep changing and keep up with what's new. You guys talk.
I feel like, I guess from the cosplay perspective with GAAM, I know my first year that I started with GAAM, I knew nothing. I was just like this lost, lonely child, like, what am I doing? I'm just getting my picture taken. And then you realize how much work goes into it, and there's so much work that goes into cosplay. It's not just getting your picture taken. Modeling is hard. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. So after the first year, I learned a lot, and it was kind of an idea of how can we improve this from a cosplay perspective, how can we make it better. And every year I've kind of annoyed this guy until I kind of got my way, and I feel like the way we handle cosplay as far as the cast goes and as ways we handle it for our attendees has changed, and I feel like it's kind of blossomed and opened up, and it's become like the safe place for cosplayers. And it's always amazing to see people's costume progress. Like, oh, I'm making this for GAAM. Like, that's really cool. I see people who are always working on costumes for big events, so to see them working on one for GAAM is it's always a really cool thing. So it's just keeping an open mind and just letting people know that the GAAM events are just like a fun, safe place to cosplay at. So I feel like as long as we keep pushing that message and being more open-minded with it, you know, hopefully we keep motivating people to come out and kind of be themselves.
So a prime example of what my dad was talking about is GAAM Gladiators. GAAM Gladiators is our premier esports event in Jacksonville. And so ever since the shooting at the landing, esports has been very taboo within the city of Jacksonville. And so we've used GAAM Gladiators to put Jacksonville on the map because we have the community. I see you back there. We have the community. Fighting game community here is very strong, and we're a lot more than the tragedy that happened.
Thank you, Lee.
And alcohol. Lots of alcohol. That's helpful.
Can't forget that part. Can't forget that.
Free beer? No, I'm kidding.
On Ryan's tab. Moving on. Max, you're no stranger to uniting people through the appeal of comic conventions and other nerd-centric events. You've produced several successful shows, including Ancient City Con and Jekyll Comic Con. Can you give us a longer perspective of why conventions seem to be flourishing here in Jax and also nationwide so much more today than maybe, say, years past?
Well, I could definitely say that one of the biggest reasons is probably the internet and social media. As before, where years past before that, you had to go out to a comic shop or a game shop, but not that there were many of those in town, to actually pick up a flyer for something. Now it comes right in your phone and to your face and in podcasts and things like that. There's more communication between everybody. I know. But it's helped in a lot of not only my own, but smaller conventions like Infinity Con in Lake City, or there's a few in Ocala conventions that are in smaller cities that would not normally have the crowd locally to go. People will now travel more often. You know, it's easier to go to St. Augustine for a show. When Ancient City Con first started, we recently took over the show after the previous owner's 10th year, and he kind of burned out on it, but he had moved it to Jacksonville from St. Augustine because the crowd was here in Jacksonville and not in St. Augustine, and people weren't traveling out of town, and now people are able to, you know, there's more communication, more people can book hotels online and be able to travel easier and more often. I think it's helped open up the kind of freeways to people getting to great events all around.
Thank you, Max. Thank you. Let's move on to Zach. I want to talk about comic books and TV intersection. There we go. Zach, your portfolio of comic work includes 3 series being published by Image Comics and Top Cow, respectively. You've got Port of Earth, Eclipse, and Lost City Explorers, which are either in talks or currently being adapted for TV development. How would you define the synergy between these two mediums, comic books and television, and the success similar comic book properties have had in capturing the attention of viewers who don't necessarily read comics?
I'll start by talking about the similarity, and it's unlike the relationship between literature and film and TV, comics is a visual medium. So right off the bat, the way we watch film and TV is shot by shot. The way comics and graphic novels are created is panel by panel. So there's similarity there. There's similarity in the concept of episodic, from whether it's an issue or an episode of TV, and the nature of a cliffhanger. So there's a lot of similarity in the way this is being crafted. In addition, in terms of Hollywood looking for great content, comics already being a visual medium that has the characters, the world, the visual language already created, it makes it very easy to translate that into film and TV. But there's a lot going on in the content landscape that is really blowing up the opportunities for comics and the intellectual property in comics. First off, streamers have completely changed the definitions of what content is, and then how we watch content, whether it's on our devices or our phones. That has really opened up the door for comic book properties like Walking Dead, The Boys, Umbrella Academy, Deadly Class, and there is a tidal wave of new titles that are about to come at us in the next couple of years. And those couldn't have come to the film and TV content market 10 years ago because it was too strict in terms of the case of the week format or the workplace soap. But now what is defined as content is really very open up. And one more thing has happened, which is Marvel and DC and Star Wars and these mega franchises are re-educating viewers as to how we watch content, and they're teaching us to watch it on multiple platforms. And so you can like the movie, and then you can go check out the video game, and then you can go find that same content in comics. And so it's really, they're not really comic fans and movie TV fans anymore. It's just content fans. And that's exciting because it really creates a community not around a medium, but around an idea and a piece of content. And that's what you're seeing in the conventions and the cosplay and everything is a celebration of the stories and the characters and a unification around that.
Thank you, Zach. Well said. Max, have you personally noticed any impacts to comic book conventions due to the union of comic books, film, and television?
Well, definitely for film and television, they've almost taken over San Diego Comic-Con altogether. Film and television has impacted that show to where there are fewer and fewer comics there for San Diego Comic-Con. But certainly it's opened up, film and TV has opened up the kind of nerd world to everybody with all the different shows that are out there now and all the huge impact that Marvel films have had. 12 years or so of different films. It's brought in way more people from all different cultures than it ever would have before, without it.
Thank you. I want to move on to exploring identity and cosplay specifically. Anne-Marie, you've been awarded several titles for your intricate cosplays, which our audience can see up on the big screen, throughout the years. What originally fascinated you so much about cosplay, and how has it become a part of your identity now?
What fascinated me about cosplay was 16 years ago when I started, there was no internet. So the only way you heard about cosplay was through word of mouth. So it was very much like, it felt like this secret far off world, like growing up in South Florida, all the big events happened in Orlando. So you would hear about it from your friends and you didn't know much about it, but it was just, as an anime fan and a gaming fan, it just sounded so intriguing. And when I got my first chance to go to a convention, I just knew, I'm like, well, when you go to these things, you cosplay, it's just what you do. And I made like this horrible, tragic costume and wore it, and I didn't know what I was doing at this convention, but I had the best time ever. And I knew from then on, anytime I went to these things, I had to dress up. And it became a learning experience where you start with a hot glue gun and hand sewing to machine sewing and embroidery, and you kind of learn as you go, and you start meeting all these people. And then, back then we all had cosplayer handles. Nobody really went by their first name. So I think it really became an identity when somebody was like, hey, are you Miss Valentine? And it was like, oh, like it's not Anne, it's like they know me by my cosplayer name. So it just kind of became this world, and then we all knew each other by our cosplay handles, and then the internet blew up, and then LiveJournal, God, I'm dating myself there, but LiveJournal and cosplay.com, and it just kind of was just how everybody knew each other, was through the costumes you make and what you liked. And so before I knew it, it just kind of became who you are, and now, back then, even now, to go to a convention and not be in costume is the weirdest thing ever, because it just doesn't feel natural. It just doesn't feel right. So yeah, it's kind of weird because I find that I have so much more confidence in cosplay than out of it, which is weird, and a lot of people don't actually believe that because they're like, oh, well, you're so confident, you're so outgoing. I'm like, yeah, but it's almost like, you know, talking about wearing a mask. It's like, well, that's almost like wearing a mask to me is wearing a costume. So it definitely helps you become more confident, and you know, you kind of identify with the personality traits of the characters you're cosplaying, and you kind of take that into yourself, and you learn how to be more, you know, determined and more motivated, and kind of, you know, just you grow up with these characters and cosplaying. So it's definitely become an identity for me, and I feel like it's helped me become a better person as well.
Thank you. Lee, can you add to the topic of identity based on your experience photographing numerous cosplayers? I mean, what are the things that you've noticed regarding identity through cosplay being behind the lens or the camera?
What's odd is I kind of just fell into the world, and I'm a cosplayer as well, so I can kind of see from both sides of the lens. But I mean, back then it was like a decade ago, there was no women in esports, and so as I got older, I realized, wow, like there's no powerful women representing in esports. And so I decided I need to become someone inspirational, and I'm still working towards that. But as the days go on, it's more and more influential women and all gender identities are making a difference within esports. Oh yes, Combo Queens and Persia's Academy XO. So Samantha Hancock, she created XO Academy. It's a partnership with a professional fighting game player, and she pairs them up with a woman in the fighting game community, and they go through intense training to become a better player.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I wanted to, speaking about representation, I wanted to talk a little bit about minority storytelling as well as unique perspectives, and I'll take it to Zack. Zack, characters from all walks of life, ethnicities, and backgrounds can be found in your comic books. How do you go about injecting diverse and captivating perspectives in your work that aren't necessarily your own?
You got me? Well, first off, I write science fiction, and so as I'm trying to explore modern themes and conflicts in my storytelling, you know, I try to find ways to explore the human experience above it all. I'll give you a couple examples. Eclipse is a story about what if the sun turned deadly on us, but at the heart of that, it's asking about our relationship with the environment and how we take it for granted. Port of Earth is what if aliens came not to blow us up like they always do, but came with a business deal. And it's a twist on the alien arrival, but it kind of has a commentary on capitalism and how a lot of us feel very powerless when we turn on the TVs and we watch things unfolding in modern society. So when I'm exploring these kind of topics, I try to avoid answering the questions, but just asking questions and not really having anything be red state or blue state, but just human state and exploring that stuff. In regards to diversity, my title, Lost City Explorers, is a good example. I had to look at it's a story of a group of teenagers that go looking for a lost city under New York. And so I have a group of young adults in New York City in 2019. And so two of them are African American, two of them are Hispanic, and one's Muslim American. So, you know, the goal was to have a multicultural, diverse view of what youth in America and in New York especially would look like. In Port of Earth, there's a lot of scenes where a journalist is talking to this very old, infuriating head of an agency, and we made her a very smart and clever African-American journalist and kind of exploring, you know, talking truth to power. So I try to explore different perspectives as best I can. I think far more than in my own work, what's really exciting in comics in general is that there are a ton of really diverse and exciting voices that are emerging, and I try to promote them on social media as much as I can, but it's a very exciting time to see new, fresh voices with a lot of interesting points of view in comics and in the medium.
Thank you, Zach. Ryan, can you speak to how video games have addressed inclusion and the empowerment of minority storytelling?
No, I can't, Badr.
All right, thank you. Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in this room have been fans of quite possibly the most stereotypical racist game of all time, Street Fighter II. And I think we've come a long way since that time. You can see a lot of games, like even Call of Duty, Gears of War, Last of Us, starting to integrate storylines and characters, just reflecting diversity, whether it's in terms of gender, race, identity. You know, more and more, we as a people, there's a very wide spectrum. And that's finally beginning to be reflected in gaming culture and storytelling. Now, there's going to be a phase of this where it's going to be exploitive. Like, we've all seen things in marketing and whatnot. It's like, you know, if we get a black person in this game, more of them will buy it, right? And, you know, that there is that mindset. But there's also a lot of people that are genuinely now getting the opportunity to be writers, to be designers, and create characters that genuinely reflect their culture. And we're seeing that happen. Even, again, Street Fighter, super stereotypes, but also introducing, Rashid as a Middle Eastern character, and you're seeing people actually in the communities. You know, Street Fighter has had so much, the FGC has so much diversity within its actual community that the designers are almost forced to reflect that diversity within the characters themselves, and that's happening within Last of Us. Is Ellie, have they identified what her, do you know what she is, or do we not want to say? So Ellie's gay, and she's like hooking up with a black chick in it? In the first game. That's something that wouldn't have happened. Sorry, I'm speaking candidly, but y'all know me by now. That's something where 10, 15 years ago, that would not have happened. That would have been a 60-minute special, and they probably would have made the game rated M, and nobody would have played it. So you're seeing a lot of growth and maturity in the industry, despite my words about it.
I just want to say, when Rashid was announced for Street Fighter V, my mom rushed out to buy it. She was like, finally, you can play as Rashid. I want to go back to Lee and Anne-Marie. I know we spoke a little bit about the role of gender in cosplay, but I wanted to get your perspectives on the role of gender and representation in esports and video games specifically.
I feel like, first and foremost, when it comes to the types of things, representation as far as cultures and races, when it comes to cosplay, I think a lot of people forget there is no right or wrong way to cosplay. There is no rule that says you have to be a certain skin type, you have to be a certain sex. I have cosplayed as girls, I have cosplayed as guys, and I never once thought, oh, I can't do this because I'm a girl cosplaying as a guy. So I feel like a lot of people need to kind of get over themselves and, you know, stop pointing fingers and stop going on their witch hunts. Like, everybody who cosplays is just a nerd playing dress up. So, you know, just, I feel like there's a lot of maybe gatekeeping in the community, but I think that we as a community need to look past those people. We need to move beyond those people and be more accepting of one another. I've seen it from the perspective of growing up cosplaying. I've had a lot of male friends who like to cosplay as female characters, and I've had a lot of black friends who like to cosplay as black characters and white characters, and I've seen it through their eyes, and I've seen like the heartbreak that they experience, and it's just, I never understood why people, you know, could be like so negative and ugly to each other, because it's like, you know, we're trying to have fun. Like, I don't see it as, you know, if there's a black girl cosplaying Sailor Moon, I don't see her as black Sailor Moon. I see her as Sailor Moon. I see her as somebody who's cosplaying a character that I love, so hey, let's have a conversation about it. And I think you have people who see it the way I do, and then you have people who don't. And the people who don't just need to get out and leave. I'm just gonna be real with you. Sorry. I've been cosplaying for 16 years, and I've seen a lot of good, and I've seen a lot of bad. But more recently, I've seen a lot more good, and so I like to kind of get out there as like the old OG generation of cosplay and kind of, you know, enforce that good and let everybody know that there's no wrong way, there's no right way, And I mean, I know recently at CEO when I cosplayed, I was really nervous to cosplay there because it's a fighting game event. It's mostly guys. Not a lot of people cosplay. I was so nervous because I thought, man, are they gonna accept me here? And to be quite honest with you, in all the years of cosplaying, it was like probably the top 3 moment I've ever had cosplaying. Like the community was so welcoming, everybody was so great. So it really shows you that sometimes, like if you're passionate enough and you just, you know, you need to take a chance. So I definitely encourage all people of color, gender, race, you know, cosplay what you love. Don't let what people say like hold you back or stop you. Just do it because you love it, because you might find a lot of negative people, but you're gonna maybe find that 1 or 2 who are gonna accept you, and those are the people that you wanna find. So I feel like it's worth taking a risk. It's gotten better over the years, but yeah, just don't let the haters hate and just do good. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Ann.
The great thing about esports these days is we don't really look at your gender identity or what you look like or what your race is. Girl. We care about your skill level. Sonic Fox won Player of the Year for Esports Awards this year, and Sonic Fox identifies as non-binary. Sonic Fox will wear the trans flag around their neck while playing. And I remember seeing this tweet, it was really funny. So Sonic Fox was talking about their gender identity, trying to explain it to a professional Japanese player. Sonic Fox was saying something along the lines of, I don't identify as male or female. And I believe it was Goichi. Goichi responds with, oh, so you're a god? And so that's one thing I love about esports is we don't really pay attention to that crap. What we care about is how good are you at the game and how passionate are you about it?
Thank you, Lee. So we've got one more question and then we'll open it up to audience questions. This one will start out with Max. All right, this is about the future and progress of these fandoms. Max, what progress do you see needed and forthcoming in the intersection of these different areas of fandom culture that we've discussed tonight, from comic books, video games, esports, conventions? What progress do you see needed and forthcoming in the intersection of these different areas of fandom?
Maybe just more word of mouth and people communicating with their friends and getting more people involved so we can get more people to more events.
All right, thank you, Max. Zach, we'll go ahead and let you chime in on that one too. Sorry, Zach?
Yeah. You got me? Am I there?
Yep, we got you.
Hello? In relationship to comic books, I think you're going to continue to see lots of new content from comic books coming to film and TV, which is very exciting because it continues to kind of bring fans back and forth. I think one trend that you'll know about probably is that this is happening in all markets, which is retail is getting hurt by online and digital formats. And so you're seeing that in comic books. I think I saw some statistic that the past 5 years, half the comic book shops around the country have closed. And so people are buying more graphic novels, they're buying more digital and online comics. And so I think that the idea of people reading comics in some form is actually growing. But in terms of retail and the classic floppy comics that we think of, that's fading drastically. And what that means, which is, I hope this doesn't happen, but it puts a lot more power in players like Amazon and Comixology, and it makes it harder for indie publishers and for new voices and new creators to come into the fold. So I hope that as fans of content get excited by seeing it in movies and TV and cosplay and conventions, that comics in the floppy form and the retail form don't continue to suffer as they're currently doing so.
Thank you, Zach. Ryan, you want to go ahead and address that as well?
What was the question again? That got deep, and I just got lost.
You need to stop sleeping.
Yeah, sorry, it's a long day. No, for real, what was the question? I'm not joking.
What else would I expect from the guy with that profile picture that we use, right? What progress do you see needed and forthcoming in the intersection of these different fandoms?
We definitely need to open our minds in terms of what these kind of art forms are and the events and everything else around. I mean, you look at TV, it's not the same how it was even 10 years ago. So many of us are consuming the content through various devices. We look at games, we've come so far from watching Mario Brothers, just two guys running back and forth on the screen hitting turtles. Look at movies. Movies now, it's like, all right, is it going to be in this kind of like Dolby Surround Cinema 4D, blah, blah, blah. We're going into this realm of like every single one of these fandoms that we've enjoyed have changed dramatically over the past few decades. So we need to start as consumers and as fans and as participants of these fandoms, expanding our own minds in terms of what they are. Like, there are things in augmented reality, VR, haptic feedback, even events themselves. Like, we've all seen these like virtual touch walls, or being able to actually engage with a cosplayer, esports, live streaming, like all these other things are aspects of these fandoms now, and we need to actually be aware of it and try to push them and support them in going forward. Because if it stays the same today, 10 years from now, the community participation of it will die, because things have to grow, they have to change. Everything else that we've supported over the years, if it stays the same, it dies off. So I will leave with that very sad and horrible thought. Well, people are changing, so we got it. Yeah, be happy. Obama, I don't know, whatever.
I can't believe you semi-saved yourself.
Go be Rashid in Street Fighter. I don't know.
You want to pass it to Anne-Marie?
Okay, so I think a good way to keep progressing cosplay forward, kind of touching back to what I said before, just being a little bit more accepting of one another, just being more open-minded. It's so different now than it was 10 years ago. Like, there's so many more resources online, materials you can buy in store. It's not this little niche hobby anymore. There's like these major companies, like 5-6 years ago, major pattern companies like Simplicity and McCall's didn't know anything. Now there are cosplay lines of patterns made by these companies. So it's definitely become more mainstream, but also, like, in a way, like you were saying, I feel like sometimes they kind of take advantage of it. So I feel like we just have to keep growing as a community, encouraging each other. If you see somebody in a costume and you like it, tell them. You have no idea how much you can make somebody's day just by telling them their costume looks great, asking them for a photo, having a conversation. You don't know how many times I've sat in my room and like been so frustrated and so upset, and I've shed tears making costumes because it is not easy. So when that one person says, "You look great," and it's like, all right, I'm gonna go in the corner and cry because they just said I look great. But just be so much more encouraging, just, be open-minded, just be more accepting of one another. I mean, that can help grow the cosplay community and just the world in general, but just kind of, teach people. I always like to give advice. Don't be closed off, just be more open to one another, and it's not this small closed-minded group that cosplay used to be. It's kind of this big world, this big community now, so I feel like as long as everybody just kind of, like you said, you got to keep going up. Like, we're in a great spot now, but we can keep doing better and get better. So just be good to one another, and just, like I said, if you're not a cosplayer, the way you can help make the cosplay community great is compliment a cosplayer, ask them for a photo. If they're in an uncomfortable costume, hold the door open for them. Like, little things like that. So, I mean, cosplayers can help each other, and then normies, as we like to call you guys, can help each other too. So, yeah, it's not derogatory. It's just, we dress up. It's what we do. So, but yeah, I think it's just, be good to each other.
Well, we'll call Austin Nick Fury's cosplay is over.
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah, that's the go.
talk about C. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for bringing that positivity after Ryan's very sad answer. Lee, how about you close us out as far as progress that you'd like to see?
Oh, we're going to end that again. So being a woman in esports, I hear a lot about how we want to see more women in esports. And so I'm a victim of sexual assault within esports. And immediately when that went public, every major fighting game TO in America looked into it, and when they found out the truth and about how many women were affected by this one person, they announced that this person's no longer allowed at their events. They're banned. And so I feel like if we keep talking about how this behavior is unacceptable and remain cognizant of it, then esports will flourish and that gender divide won't exist anymore.
Thank you, Lee. Ladies and gents, let's go to give another round of applause for our awesome panel. That is the end of my questions. We're going to go and open it up for questions from you guys. Cesar's got a roaming mic, so he'll come to you. Just raise your hand and let us know if you've got a question for anyone specifically. Zach is still online as well, so feel free to ask him a question as well.
You're the first hand I saw. Coming your way.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Robert Griffin, for the neighborhood nerd. I want to ask a question for the whole panel. Ryan, in his stumbling, said something very important. There's been a lot of change over the last few years, or just like decade that we've been doing it. But a lot of the change has come through technology. What has been like your favorite bit of technology that has improved or like amplified your sector, such as comics, conventions, or cosplay, or whatever? Like what has helped you out the most?
I guess I'll start off. The internet. When I first started sewing, I legit started with a Sewing for Dummies book. There was no YouTube, there was no internet. That was how I taught myself to sew, was with a book. Like, I know, guys, books exist. So just, the internet, YouTube, people being able to share tips and techniques and being able to see something versus, see a video of it versus a book, it just really helps. Like, it was just a game changer. People could share things and, we could all kind of like step up our game and advance it. So yeah, I definitely think technology played a huge role in kind of like making cosplay a lot more accessible to everybody.
I guess from an event promotion standpoint and from a community growth standpoint, I mean, I'm sure Max is the same. We're a very similar answer. Like, social media is so insanely different than, like, I remember going out and like literally walking into Tilt, and that's how you met people. It's like, oh dang, yeah, you're gonna play Marvel vs. Capcom too? Well, you better quarter up. Yeah, like that's how it was. Now, if I want to find someone else to play with, like, I'm not gonna go into my normal Ryan jokes on that, but like I can just post on Facebook, hey, who wants to play this game? Or I can go and just find a game through a multiplayer match on PSN or Xbox Live. Like, social media in all respects have just completely changed the game. Your kids don't know how good you got it. Things were different.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Social media is fantastic. Also, having online ticketing and PayPal has been just a total game changer for promotions, where vendors can pay their vendor fee with a PayPal transfer, or you could go online and buy a ticket and have your barcode ready to go and scan in to come in. It's just made it a world easier for event promoters to keep things organized, to get people in quickly, and to get it out there to a wider audience. It's just been a complete revolution as far as promotion goes. Back in the day, we had to use Ticketmaster, and they were a nightmare to deal with, and huge fees and all that. But now that's all changed.
He's not done.
Look at your damn data, son. Go into the insights, get something like Hootsuite or whatever it is. Don't just say that I've got data on stuff. Look at it, study it, be open to the idea of being wrong and not knowing anything about what you're doing, and then make changes to improve. Sorry.
Netplay has changed the fighting game scene so much since Street Fighter 4. It's so cool being able to see these online unknown warriors come in and just take out a professional player. That's hype. That's so fun to photograph, dude. Like, come on. So the internet has definitely been able to create moments like that.
Thank you. Zach, so the question was, what specific piece of technology has, I guess in your case, revolutionized making comic books?
Well, I was going to say Square, which was kind of similar to PayPal, but I know that's changed selling comic books because you can go to a convention now and it's not cash. You can have a little Square device and sell them very easily, and that's opened up the commerce opportunities for everybody in all of these spaces. In terms of making comics, I mean, it's amazing how international making comics is. I've worked with a lot of international artists from Italy, Spain. There's artists in Brazil and Asia, and the technology to communicate with these artists and send high-def pages back and forth. I think that's really changed. I hear the pros tell stories about years ago where they actually would mail pages back and forth, and now it's all instantaneous, and we can send high-resolution images back and forth. So, in terms of actually producing great comics and working with international talent all over, that's really helped.
Thank you, Zach. And thank you for that question, Robert. Do we have any other questions? Oh, we got a few.
I'd say also to that, on-demand printing has made a big difference in comic publication, because before where you had to go to a printer and print a larger amount, now you can print one off if you want to, and it's a lot easier.
Cool. So I'm Mark, and hi everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. What's up? I would say my gamer tag, but I have students in here and I don't want y'all following me yet. So my question is, this is actually for everyone on the panel. Could you give us a little bit of real talk on the business end of what you do? Because I have students who are interested in streaming and getting into esports and all these areas, but as an artist, I'm like, well, let me tell you the business side of artists or the art world. So it looks fun, but it's a grind. So could you talk about that for anybody in the room who's interested in possibly pursuing these types of opportunities?
I could say, as far as producing shows, a lot of people say, oh, I'd love to do a show, but you don't know what it's like, and the grass is always greener on the other side. But actually producing a show, it's endless hours. It's writing contracts. It's contacting people, waiting for replies back. It's just, it's a nonstop grind, 24/7 to put these shows together, and you have to be able to adapt on the fly when something goes wrong, to be able to fix it and not panic, to have the whole thing fall apart. And if you're leading a team, you have to make sure they're all confident in what you're doing as well. And it's a full-time job almost on top of all of our full-time jobs.
Lee, you want to take that next?
Yeah, I would say don't do it thinking that you're going to make money from it from the get-go. I've been photographing the fighting game community for at least a decade. I still work a full-time job. I still travel pretty much every month. I'll work 7 a.m. to 3, and then I'll hop on a flight to Los Angeles and shoot a tournament for 3 days straight, 16-hour-long work days, and my albums are due next morning. So, and I don't get paid enough for that crap. So do it because you love it. I'm passionate about the fighting game community, and that's why I still do it.
I would definitely say, at least from helping with GAAM, if you want to make this kind of thing your full-time job, have a backup plan. Like everybody up here is saying, like, we do all these great, amazing things, but it is unfortunately not our full-time job. It does not pay the bills. So that's why I always like to say that GAAM is a passion project. We do it because we love it, and we love putting on these events for everybody. But, don't think that because you might watch somebody on YouTube who has 1 million subscribers, or you watch someone on Twitch who's got like 2,000 people watching them, don't think that came overnight. It's like that meme of the iceberg. All you see is like the success at the top. You don't see everything that went on to get there. You're only seeing the end result. that kid who's streaming with 2,000 viewers yesterday, a year ago, maybe only had 20 people watching. So you really gotta hustle, and just don't think that it's an overnight success. You know, it's hard work, guys. You're not just gonna open a door and it's like, oh, here's your gold play button from YouTube, congratulations. Like, but also, like, don't get discouraged. Like, you're gonna falter, you're gonna fail. I've made costumes and worn them and thought they were great, and they've fallen apart at conventions, and I'm like, you know, this really sucks, but it just means that I can do better next time. So just always, like, be your own #1 fan, and don't depend on somebody else to do it for you. So you can do it. Yeah. Woo!
Ryan?
You want to keep it real, huh?
No, not that real.
Okay.
Not that real.
Keep it semi-fairy tale. So, obviously, like what everyone else says, do it because you love it. It's got to be a true passion. You're going to be up till 3, 4 in the morning, just like with any other kind of art. One thing I would recommend, especially to students or people who are getting into this, whether it's from the cosplay or esports event perspective, the main thing is just don't do a podcast. There's no future in that.
All right, you can cut his mic off.
Yo, hold on a second. Hold on. I just realized.
In all seriousness.
Wait. Were you talking about me when you said Nick Fury?
Oh, no, you? Yeah. It was a good Nick Fury.
Bro, you look like chubby John Legend.
Wait.
I'm just an ordinary people.
This is TEDxFSCJ, not your mom. All right.
Sorry.
Ryan,
in all seriousness, be smart about it. Like, if you're going to go into cosplay, use those skill sets to have a full-time job or some other form of employment that's going to continue to grow that skill set and allow you to grow. Yeah, work at Joann's. If you're going to do photography and esports photography, do something else that will help support that hobby, tradition, that passion. You know, whether it's going to be something else explicitly in photography, but have something else to carry you to get you to the next stage of whatever your plan is. I started off doing fine arts illustration. I remember telling my dad, I'm gonna draw comic books. And he's like, well, you gotta move. I was like, you're right, I'm gonna learn some design. So, and then I transitioned from design to web design to development, to social media. Like, I don't know how many different hats I've put on, but each step has helped give me a skill set to get me to where my ultimate goals are and the things that I truly am passionate about. So be smart, don't put everything, you know, in one bucket, and know that you are going to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice if you want to feel fulfilled in doing this. You're probably going to be rich, but you can still be fulfilled, and that's okay.
Zach, how about you?
I would say you have to be delusional to do it. And what I mean by that is that the universe is going to tell you no so many times. And the people who make it past that are the ones that find some level of success. And so you have to believe even when someone or everyone tells you no. It's not to say you need to quit your job or you don't keep learning. You always need to be growing. You always need to be trying different things. But you really have to believe if you want to be a creator or you want to do something artistic or you want to do something in the space, it is a hustle and it takes a lot of belief in yourself. The other thing I'd say is I think a lot of times beginning students or creators, they get caught in this idea that in order to break in, you have to have this one magic thing, this one breakout demonstration or experience. And I say, no, you are the product. And as many little things as you can put out there, I think someone else said that, you have to just put a ton of different content and attempts out there and continue to share yourself over and over and over again. And every time just hope to get a little more exposure and a little more eyeballs. And you just cannot not give up. But it's about putting yourself out there again and again and not investing in just one thing.
Thank you, Zach. I think we have time for one more question. I saw a hand on this side. Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for an awesome panel and for a great discussion. And thanks to, I think, Anne-Marie, you mentioned about your experience with the assault. Is there sexism sorry, is there sexism in this industry, and how can we as a community fight sexism and women objectification?
Well, I mean, I'll pass it to Lee so she can talk about how it is in esports, but in the cosplay world, yes. I'm sure some of you may have heard the whole cosplay is not consent movement. Basically, it means just because a girl is walking around in a skimpy costume doesn't mean that you can walk up and, grab her ass. Doesn't mean that you can harass her. It also doesn't give Deadpool cosplayers, and I understand Deadpool's a jerk, but it's also not okay to walk around as Deadpool and be a jerk to people. So there is like a lot of people do objectify female cosplayers, and I feel like they think it's okay because we're in costume, and it's like, oh, well, you're the character and you're wearing it, so it makes it okay. It really doesn't. Just be respectful, just be mindful. You know, if you want to take, like I'm always cool if somebody wants to take a photo. It's like, all right, let's hover hands. Let's be real. Like no touchy. But a lot of people don't know that. I think what's most important, and this definitely kicks to Lee, if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to put up with it. You can say right there on the spot, I'm not okay with this. I had an incident at San Diego Comic-Con where I was much younger and something happened, and I didn't say anything because I was afraid to make a scene. Me now, I'd make a scene because, you know, you need to let other people know, you know, the younger generation know, like, it's not okay. And then also, like, that goes out to other attendees. If you see something like that happening, if you see that a girl or a guy looks uncomfortable, the best thing you can do is be like, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. Like, interject, help them out. But really, yeah, it is unfortunate. It does exist in the cosplay world. It exists in the world just in general, but just kind of, you know, be the superhero. If you see a girl getting harassed, like, you can really help them out. Yeah, so it exists, it's sad, but, you know, just be there for each other. I know Lee is amazing for coming forward, and I know a lot of girls are scared to do what she did, so that's why, like, I have nothing but respect for her for that, so you're awesome.
Unfortunately, yes, it does exist. I did not tell anybody about that assault for 3 years, and when I finally confided into a friend of mine who I heard through somebody else that she had a similar experience as me, that's when it blew up, and that's when it kind of took over the internet. Not the complete internet, like the internet of the fighting game community. But instantly, people were like, well, we have to look into this. This guy is everywhere, you know, and he's a fellow photographer like myself. He photographed the Combo Queens panel. How is that right? He's assaulting women, and yet he's over there photographing them as well. I wouldn't want them photographing my daughter. And so when that came to light, every tournament organizer in America became cognizant of it, and they banned him. And because of that, I feel a lot safer now, and I'm sure all the women that he has affected feels a lot safer now too.
Thank you. Once again, I want to go and thank our panel for joining us. I want to thank Zach for calling all the way in from California. I want to go and thank once again everyone that showed up tonight in support, as well as TEDxFSCJ for giving us this opportunity to put a spotlight on all of these fandoms that we hold dearly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I think Paul has got some closing words to go ahead and wrap us up. So.
I'll just do it from back here. Do you, people on the stage, and Zach, do you want to tell us what's the next step? Where can we see you next? What's the next thing we should pay attention to?
Yeah, well, we've got some flyers out there on the table for some stuff that I'm involved in. Jekyll Comic-Con's happening next weekend up at Jekyll Island, Georgia, December 14th, one-day show. And then December 21st, we're doing Force Fest. It's a Star Wars fan party in conjunction with Sunray. Cinema will be in the back lot there. And then we're going to be right here at Mosh to close out this astronaut exhibit on Saturday, January 4th, with Spaced Out Mini Comic-Con with guests and vendors and things like that as well.
I'm trying to look up what we're doing. I don't know. But main thing is, yes, right, GAAM fam. I just don't say something. No. that's the only event that's important to me right now, is that we're doing like a cleanup thing this Saturday. What's it called? I don't even know. Oh, we're doing for feeding people? Man, that's pretty good too. There you go. GAAM Feeds. Look that up on Facebook. We'll have a bunch of other stuff happening during the year, but really not important. Right now, it's going into the holidays, people are hungry, and this is one of those things, someone had asked earlier about what can we do to continue growing our communities and our fandoms. This was a moment where someone from the team, who I think like many of us in our community has a lot of social anxieties, and she found the strength to step up and become a leader and try to do something that she cares about. And so she's proceeded to do things like cleaning up the community, and now doing something where she's feeding the community. And when those moments occur, it becomes the responsibility of the people around that person to support and hold that person up so she can succeed and hopefully inspire other people to be able to do the same thing. So GAAM Feeds is important to us. I hope many of you either participate in it or tell someone else about it. And I don't know, everything else I say is stupid.
How do you even follow that up?
You just don't. You just kind of let it go.
Just pretend it's not here. Right now, it's kind of the end of the year. Kind of don't have anything going on cosplay plans, except getting ready for everything next year that's going on. Definitely getting ready to go to some more esports events, cosplay, so I can hang out with this cool girl, and then getting ready for all the fun GAAM events that we're doing next year. So, and then planning all my new costumes. So, yeah, always planning ahead for the next year. But yeah, thanks for listening to us talking up here. It's been fun. And yeah, you can find me with the GAAM folk. We're always doing something.
I'll be in Ontario, California, photographing Genesis, which is Smash World Finals. It takes place at the Paramount Theater, which was actually that photo, that handshake. I believe Batman was premiered there, but it's a beautiful freaking theater. But yeah, like, if you catch the live stream, if you're into Smash, if you're into Splatoon, tune in. It's a really great event.
Thank you, Lee. And Zach, we'll go ahead and hand it off to you.
Yeah, I have a new book being announced in a very short time this month, so that'll be exciting. And then everybody can find my work online, and I'm online on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, more coming next year. So hard at work writing and developing.
Thank you, Zach. I think with that being said, I think this is oh yeah, that's right, the short box. If you want to hear more of Cesar's awesome monologues and impressions and my attempt at moderating, you can check us out at the Short Box Podcast. We're available on most podcast apps. We talk comic books, pop culture, and we love putting a spotlight on Jacksonville. We're a weekly show. We also do bonus episodes and try to do as many live events as we can. So check us out across social media at The Short Box Jacks, or go on your favorite podcast app and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for coming out.